make it 7 o'clock, and I'm going to kick off. And I'm going to kick off by saying we have 45, yet again, we have 45 items on the agenda. So I'm going to be ruthless about the 3 minutes. And I'm not going to call councillors to speak again on the topic unless they have new information that will enhance the discussion. But it does mean we all need to be disciplined. Please don't speak just to agree with the person who's just spoken, if you can resist it. And we've got, for a lot of the items, we've got like 1 and 2 minutes. And I'm going to have a look at ways in which we can get these agendas short, because it's silly that we only look at things for a minute or two. We need to find ways of being able to discuss things a bit better. However, we are where we are, and we will get through it. Welcome everybody, welcome to Tim. This meeting is being recorded for our purposes. Is there anybody who wishes to make their own recording in addition to the one being made? No? Good, that's fine. I think I'll keep it open to the item. Tim, are you happy to sit through stuff until we get to the item to which you want to speak?
Yeah, that's fine.
Rather than speaking and then us coming to it much later.
Yeah, that's good.
So we will, and since there are no other members of the public here, we'll defer public question time until it can coincide with the item Tim wants to speak to. Does anybody feel there is anything on the agenda we need to discuss in private session?
You've got a copy of the agenda there.
No? Apologies and reasons for absence. We've had the reasons circulated from the 3 people who can't be here, who are
Councillor Stewart, Councillor Lyles and Councillor Fenwick, and Councillor Fernandez is covered by dispensation still.
So are we happy to approve the reasons for their apologies? Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
just on, I've tried to ring Donald this afternoon 3 times and I can't get through to him. I know his sister-in-law's quite badly ill, so I'm not making apologies for him, just to know that it chances are he's got a family emergency.
Right, thank you. Has this gone? Or is it still in the papers we were going to?
Oh, sorry, I've made a mistake on the papers as well, and I left in about considering the 6-month dispensation from the last agenda, so that's just a mistake, so that's to be disregarded, please.
So you move to 112, basically. Are there any new requests?
No,
PPIs?
don't see it.
Anybody got any declarations of interest in agenda items? Lauren?
Yeah, item 135 about the Full Life Church food bank of an interest just as volunteers.
Okay. Well, I can ask the meeting whether they feel that precludes you from taking part in the discussion. Are people happy for Lawrence to take part in the discussion as a volunteer there?
Yeah.
Hands, please. Thank you. So, meeting minutes of the.
Sorry, I think we need to declare an interest in item 121 about the committee structure meetings, which affects our job roles as well.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you probably shouldn't speak to that one.
That's fine by you.
Thank you. Minutes of various meetings, starting with full council meetings. To approve the minutes of the full council meeting of the 14th of October. Are you content that these are accurate and true? Yes? Hands, please. Thank you. Are there any further actions that aren't already on this agenda that we need to consider?
I can go through the matters arising, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Chair. So we're still awaiting the civic unrelease, and I have to admit I've not had time to chase that prior to this meeting, but I will do before the next full council meeting. I also omitted to add the Service Provision Committee minutes, from the 23rd of September for noting. So I'll remedy that in the 3rd of the February meeting. Just to say, there are no new referrals to the Kirklees monitoring officers, that's why that's not on the agenda. And regarding the meeting of the complaints panel referred to in the minutes, a number of actions for the clerk still are outstanding, and that includes giving feedback to individual councillors who were named in the complaint. So my apologies for that, but I will get round to contacting you just to brief you as to what was said in the complaints panel. Okay, thank you.
Minutes of various committees. To note, the minutes of the planning committee. Can we note those?
Noted.
Noted, thank you. This one is to approve minutes of service, but do you want to propose these?
I propose that they're approved.
All those in favour? Thank you. To note, the planning committee of the 11th of November. Noted.
Yeah.
Thank you. And to approve, so it'll have to be proposed, the climate action communications and engage committee case for November. So
I'll propose that, I share it.
right. All those in favour?
Can I just
Oh.
ask you to get a seconder as well?
Oh, seconder, sorry.
I'll second it.
Thank you. You. All those in favour? Thank you. Financial matters, the schedule of payments. It's included in the pack. Rich, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, there's only two things to approve really. One of them is the plaque, which some of you will have seen for the COVID commemorative garden, which is up here. The other one I wanted to draw your attention to is the roof repairs final VAT elements. Now, the full amount was approved last year, but obviously that was last year, so we need to actually approve the payment this year because we did agree to give them it. There's no budget for it, so it would have to come from general reserve, so that's something you need to be aware of. But,
And I take it we have sufficient in general.
well, we do now. I suppose we may need to do adjustments come, say, February or March. We might need to do some moving around of earmark reserves. But we have promised to pay it, so we're a bit stuck really.
Right. Thank you very much. So they are to note.
No, they're to approve.
Ah, are they?
Apologies, that's a mistake in the agenda.
Can somebody propose them, please? Thank you, Andy. Seconded by
Yeah.
Mary. Thank you. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Now, this next point, 117, I've looked at this and the clerical team and myself are recommending that we take expert advice, that we defer this, because I don't know how many of you read this, but I've read it about 4 times and I don't really know what it means, I'll be perfectly honest. And the clerical team hasn't had time and they're not confident they will on their own, even if they're given loads of time. So I think we need legal advice on this, expert advice. And so I am asking somebody to propose that we defer this. You've got a question?
No.
Oh, right. That we defer this and that we get some expert advice, we pay whatever it costs, and then we discuss it when we've had that advice. All of the, so propose, Andy.
I thought that's what this was doing.
Well, no, this was advice, but it's impenetrable advice.
I have
But it was free, or very cheap. So,
Chair, can we not try and get clarification on this advice before we move to paying for expert advice? Because I'd hate to be in a position where we had the same thing from the...
well, I don't think they'll give us a second batch for free, and I frankly don't trust them to make it any clearer, to be brutally honest. Tom?
Yeah, I agree with Lawrence on this, because before we've been given conflicting advice when we've gone for the legal advice, which contradicted what YLCA have said. So I might just be asking them to clarify a few points and just break it down into a couple of paragraphs, make it a bit more simpler for us, and then go from there.
Well, we can certainly start by doing that. Then we can look at that and see if we understand it. And if we feel we can cope. So anyway, in the short term, I want somebody to propose that we defer it until, excuse me, until we understand it better. Can somebody, thank you, Councillor Ramsby, seconded by, thank you Martin, all those in favour? Thank you. And we move on to the meaty part, I suppose, the budget. I will just very briefly say, and you've all had the papers, but Finance and Management looked at the three options that Rich has prepared for us. And F&M is proposing option C. That is what F&M is recommending. Rich will talk you through them in a minute, but you know, that is what F&M is recommending after quite a considerable debate and a lot of thought and a lot of discussion of possibilities. That is what F&M is recommending. So I'll now hand, and Andy, Andy will talk about the visioning, won't you? I'll hand over to Rich to talk about the general principles and how we what's there.
Okay. Well, the first thing I wanted to draw your attention to was the NALT report on precepts and the Band D charges, and it's quite useful to get a view of the sort of national picture and the sort of local Yorkshire picture. As you're all aware, we are one of the lowest precepts in Yorkshire. You'll have seen that the average Band D nationally this year is 89.18, which is obviously about £60+ more than ours. The increase was this year the average increase was £7.44, which was just about just under twice what the increase that we paid last year. In Yorkshire, the average Band D charge is £57.03. Again, that's about 20 quid more than the Home Valley, and the highest is £288.46. So you probably noticed there was vast differences in the amount of Band D charge and the vast difference in precept. I just wanted to draw your attention really to the fact that the Home Valley, even if we do put the precept, the household charge up and the precept up, we're still quite a low paying authority essentially. Right, let's go on to the report on the budgets. I have to apologise. You'll probably seen on my report that when I was preparing the figures for finance and management, I managed to build money into the budget twice for the rolling grant, so it appeared in earmark reserves and in the budget lines. That's obviously not great. However, it does mean that we have more money to play with. It does mean that there's, if we take one of those amounts out, we're sort of saving some money. We're saving about 60 pence. So, if I give you a brief idea of the thoughts behind the three, it was Councillor Wilson who asked me to prepare three sort of separate budgets with different kind of approaches to the council's priorities. I started with the medium outlay budget, and what that was essentially trying to do was manage some of the problems that we've come up against this year, which is essentially to do with the very high cost of the election and things like the insurance uplift. Obviously we've got things like the extra money for the civic. So this was trying to cover those kind of problems and also make sure that we have enough money in general reserves. If you do all that stuff, it gives us an increase to the Band D household charge of £4.69, which would take it up to £35.22 a year. So that was what I started with. When that was put to F&M, that got 0 votes. Nobody voted for that one. The lower outlay budget, I think the Councillor Wilson's point of view on this was trying to give a means for the people of the Home Valley where they weren't being affected by having to pay a big uplift in the Band D household charge. So that was done by essentially cutting the grants budgets by £13,000. assets budget was reduced from 53,000 to 40,000. With that, the Bandy household charge would go up £2.88 to £33.41. And then the final one was the one that the Finance and Management Committee voted for. It was voted for by 8 people. The lower outlay budget, I should have said, was voted for by 2 people. So the higher outlay one was voted for by, how many was it? 8. 8. The point with this was it was trying to manage a few separate things which had come on, you know, which we were aware of. One of the big reasons it was chosen was it had built in an extra £20,000 for a visioning document for the Civic, which is something that the Service Provision Committee had asked for. I think they were wanting a better clarity towards the future of this place, and didn't feel like the development of the Civic could go forward properly without that document. So that 20,000 is built in there. On top of that, one of the other aspects of it was to build in some extra general reserves. I'm sure you're aware, I mean, one of the problems, you know, from my position and from the council position is we keep getting unexpected large expenditure that kind of comes out of nowhere for us, which kind of makes us a bit vulnerable. So the idea with this was that we'd build in an extra sort of £15,000. This would cover us, for example, if, as is not unlikely, we ended up with 2 elections in 1 year, which is would cost £20,000. We would have cover for that. It was essentially building in a sort of an extra layer of protection. That would mean we had a level of general reserves of 27%, as opposed to our normal one of 25%. The increase in the Bandy household charge with that would be £8.06, and it would go up to £38.59 a year. That's me essentially.
Thank you. I'm going to propose that we suspend standing orders and listen to...
Just before we do that, thanks Rich for that. Just one point, these were illustrations, these 3 sort of budgets. We don't have to go with any of them.
Yeah.
We can mix and match.
Yeah, but you can come back and speak to that in a minute. I'm going to call you after.
That's it, that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, right.
We don't have to follow any of those 3. We can kind of mix it.
You're welcome to have your 3 minutes.
I'll just
Actually, I'm proposing that we suspend standing orders to allow him to speak now. Do you all agree to that? Thank you.
Right. What I'm here about is in 2017-2018, some of you will be aware and others won't be aware, that we actually increased the precept by £100,000. That £100,000 was for assets, mainly the Civic Hall and the toilets in Holme, and now what's come along is Holme Library. And if you think going back 8 years, that is equivalent to around £800,000, shy of £1 million. Where's the money? It's not being pulled into our assets. And we've just heard from Rich here that, you know, we can reduce the amount of grant money. What happened was, then it went carte blanche. You know, the money wasn't going for the original things that it was raised for. And we were only going to raise it for 1 year. We decided to take it an extra 1 year because at that time we was talking about Holme Library. And the thing is that that money has been given away in grants, left, right and centre. When I was a parish councillor, at that time, we only gave away £500, £1,500. But because this £100,000 which was raised, which was £22.90 on the Band D, it's just been put in the pot and it hasn't been utilised for the things that are needed. It's good to see that the scaffolding up here doing repairs to the roof, but the parish council keeps on saying, what are we going to do for our global climate change emergency? When we could be making the building with £800,000 more sustainable. We could have double glazing put in,
minute.
Yeah, I've got just gone on to 1 minute and 6 seconds. So what I believe is two things. We either have to cut the grant money seriously and put that money where it was meant for in the first place, or we've got to reduce the precept down by £22.90. In fact, if we reduce it to get that £100,000 back over 8 years, it's probably a reduction of £150,000 per year. So I would like the parish council to consider that we reduce the precept, we reduce the grant money, or we do what we was meant to do with that money, and I've got a letter here, I've given a copy to Rich, that we utilise that money that we're getting in for our assets, not for the other assets, not for the technical college or up the road for a cargo bike or anything like this. Let's concentrate on what we are. We're a parish council, we're not a town council like Kirklees.
You've had your time.
Thank you very much. Do you want to talk about the vision before we move further on, or should we just move on? I think most people are pretty much familiar with that now.
Yeah, I can just very briefly.
Yeah.
I think we're all aware of what we're trying to do with the civic in terms of repairs and maintenance, and that's part of our key option. What we haven't really got to grips with is where we're going to go with the civic in the future. Certainly that's been raised by one or two people around here. It's also been raised by the trustees of the civic, because of course, to attract outside funding, people want to know that we're going to use it. And to know what we want to do with it, we have to have some sort of a vision for where we're going. So, in the option C that Richard talked about, there's a sum of £20,000 there to provide that vision document, and this is the architects that will put all together all the ideas, drawings, etc., to use that document.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Okay, I open the questions, comments. Anybody? Donna.
Just a bit of a query. I know it's been said that precepts on average are obviously a lot higher in other areas rather than here. But what's their council tax in them other areas? Because I've just looked at Morley, which I know has got a parish or town council or something, and their council tax is actually £100 from Leeds. It's actually £100 less a year. So looking at that, maybe their precept is a little bit higher, but they're still not going to be as much out of pocket as what we're expected on Valley residents to do. So
Thank you.
that's the question. I have got something else later, but
Any other comments, queries, questions? Damien?
I spoke at the finance management meeting, one of the two who voted for, obviously, for the lowest possible rise, which I do begrudgingly. I agree with Tim Walshaw on this, that we should cut our cloth according to the means that we have, and that we should reduce the budgets across the board. That one there. I appreciate that that doesn't give us the instant amount of cash or the ability to splash out where we need to do as at the same levels, but I'm sure that people would understand that if we explained to them the reasons why the grants will be less this year, so we could accommodate that one there. So I'll stick with that one there, and if I were to make a proposal, it would be the lowest number yet again, or a version of, as Andy said, could be made available.
Are you proposing it now, or are we going to have the debate?
I'll let the debate go, and if it's okay, I'll come in with a proposal at the end.
Further comments, further recommendations, further views? I've got Jenny, then you.
Okay, well I do feel quite strongly that grants are one of the most important things that we do. I think that the groups that we give money to are the people that we should be supporting and working with, because they are the people, whether they're a sports group, environment group, music group, they are people who make the valley such a, they're the ones who enrich the lives and make the life better for people in the valley. Not everybody is using the council, the civic. I mean, I want to spend money on the civic and, make it more open for a lot of use. And we are talking small amounts of money here, it's an increase of, I think you always have this, it's 2 cups of coffee a year. It's not a lot of money. It's significantly less than most other people pay as a precept. And I think if people realise how much we could do with that, how we could make the civic a wonderful place for the whole community and give grants to people. I don't want us to cut what we do. I want us to increase what we do, because that's what we're here for. If we're just here to sustain a doing nothing, then, you know, I don't want to be part of it. We want to do and make the Holme Valley a better place for people to live in, and we need some money to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey?
I just want to speak just a bit about the visioning document and the cost of the visioning document, because that is, you know, consideration for this. Agreeing with what Councillor Wilson says, also but to say that, you know, we want, it's something that I believe we want sooner rather than later. I think the sooner we can build it into not just the picture about what it's going to be in the future, but how various jobs, you know, that were being planned, that are in the schedule, can fit in with one another. So it's not just about patching up the building, but it is also about sort of that development for the future. And the sooner we have that, the better. And I would like if the trustees are able to get an assurance from the architects as to when, you know, that it would be, that if we decide to go ahead, if they decide to go ahead with the architects, that we get it, you know, within a reasonable time, and that can be agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsby?
Yeah, the trustees for the Civic met last Tuesday, if I remember rightly, and we have asked, we are going, or the architects are going to be asked if they will start work on the visioning document slightly ahead of payment. If they know the payment is in the budget, would they start work prior to that? And I presume we'll get an answer in the new year.
Checks in the post, yes.
Something like that.
Any further comments made? You've already spoken. I will call you if nobody else is.
And it was first.
You've already spoken.
No, not really. It didn't really.
No, I'm sorry. I said I wasn't calling people twice. Tom?
We discussed the budgets at the different committee meetings which I attend, and the increase in costs from what I've seen is justified. And when we do give grants out, they are for good projects and for good things in the valley, and the people, the residents, they appreciate it. It helps people with their projects and the small things that do go on. And if we aren't able to give out these small pots of money that we do for grants, then there'll be some groups which would miss out on different things. So I think it's worthwhile spending. The budget did go up last year. I think that was the first time in about 5 years, am I right, Rich? Mm-hmm. So for 5 years there was no increases to the budget. During the period of time that Tim mentioned, there's been considerable amount of inflation during that time. To add to this, so everything does cost a lot more now. So the amount that we're giving out in grants now probably is justified based on what all the increase of costs of everything. So just pointing that out, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think I do disagree with Councillor Bellamy's point about it's not really relevant that what the residents are paying out across the valley for Kirklees. Kirklees budget's a totally different thing towards ours, and the amount of money that I pay towards the parish council is minuscule compared to the council tax that I pay every month towards Kirklees. But that's a totally different issue. I've got a problem with that. I should complain to Kirklees about it and the Kirklees councillors. But yeah, but I don't think it's relevant to discuss now in the parish council meeting, unless somebody chooses to bring it up when it's a council question time, of course.
Thank you. Councillor Blacker, then Councillor Green. I want to know if there's anybody else wanting to speak. No. In which case, if you two promise to be brief, I'll let you. But we'll let Councillor Blacker and Councillor Green go first.
Thank you. At the risk of agreeing with somebody who's already spoken, I think that the grants programme is one of the best things that we do, and there's this adoption of subsidiarity, make decisions at the lowest possible level closest to the community, and that's what we achieve with the grants. But whilst the size of the grants programme has increased, I think we've also got much better and actually managing the grants, requiring grant holders to put in reports, and we've also aligned the what we're giving grants to or towards with our strategic priorities. So I think we are giving more grants, but I think we're giving more grants in a much sharper and much more in a way that actually achieves a great deal more.
Thank you. Councillor Green?
Yeah, I did some training this year on precepts and how you can raise them and why, and maintaining assets was a big reason to be able to do that. But I think if this figure's right, that we raised it and we basically frittered away £100,000 a year which could have been spent on this building, then I think if we're going to raise it again, we need to commit that we are once and for all going to sort out this building. If for no other reason, from my point of view, that is the best way that this council can address the climate emergency.
Thank you. Councillor Bellamy?
Right.
Really quick.
I completely get that Civic Hall needs investment, and so does on the library. Right. And it's down to us as a council to make sure that they get that investment for our buildings, all the rest, I get all that. And I also understand that grants are really important as a way to support local groups and initiatives. But as a council, we need to ensure that every pound we spend delivers significant community value, full stop. So going forward, I've got a bit of a proposal.
Well, there's a proposal already on the table.
Well, hang on then. So temporarily freeze the other non-essential grants, especially them that require memberships or cater for limited audiences, and redirect them to other grant sources. So then the Civic Hall and on the library can continue to be hubs for activities that benefit the entire community.
Okay.
And maybe then either look at not increasing the precept or only increase it by the very, very minimum.
Thank you.
And that's
Briefly,
Just a point on the reducing the grants budget, as Rich pointed out, that was part of option A. It was reducing it back to what we actually spent last year. So whilst it's a reduction, it's only what we spent before.
Okay. Now, there are three proposals in the air. The first one that was made was, I voiced it, it's the one that's from F&M, to vote for option C. And that was put first, therefore I think we should vote on that one first. If we vote on that one, it sort of eliminates the others, but I mean that's... So I'm going to ask you, I need a proposer and a seconder, a formal proposer for option C. Please. Thank you, Steve. A seconder, Jenny. All those in favour of option C?
Voted.
13. All those against? 4.
Five.
Abstentions? Option C is carried. Thank you. Thank you for coming, Tim.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, what chocolate? I'll send you back out, just in case Tim wants one before he goes. Got chocolate for you,
Oh,
don't
no,
you?
I'm fine. Right, okay, that's right.
Okay, we'll move on. We've still got loads of ground to cover. That's probably been the most boggy one. Item 119 is about monies to be requested for repairs on the Civic Am I right in thinking you want to speak to this?
No.
Okay, does anybody want to speak to this?
Do you want me to just
Yes.
crystallise out?
Yes, please.
Right, lovely. So, the request that you considered and approved at the last meeting was for £22,000 for Home First Civic Hall Community Trust from general reserves should the need arise, and we were just talking about roof repairs. As you'll have seen from the narrative that I've put into the agenda, the Civic thought they were talking to us about roof repairs and other urgent works. So when I listened back to the tape, having discussed this with Dawn, it is absolutely the case that Alex did talk about other work, other urgent repairs as well. But that's not the motion that you carried. So what you're really doing with this particular motion today is looking at a change of use to specify that of that 22,000, a proportion of it, 12,000 may be for roof repairs and 10,000 for other urgent works, if that clarifies it.
Okay. Does anybody want to discuss it or ask about it, or shall we move straight to a vote? Straight to vote? Okay. All those in favour of this change of use as Jen describes it, can I? Thank you, that's carried. Anybody against? Abstentions, sorry. One abstention. So that takes us.
Can I just give a further update I've received from Dawn today regarding the roof repairs? So the roof repairs are progressing at pace. The kitchenette roof should have been completed today. Some boards need replacing, but the beams are sound, and I think that was a big relief to people. Although there will be some additional cost to replace these boards that do need replacing. One of the queries that's likely to come to us, and it can come to the next meeting, is regarding the roofing system, but it might be something you want to consider now, given that you've got that motion to consider any other action regarding the civic urgent repairs. So the roofing system has a 25-year warranty, and the query that is being put to you is, should that warranty be in favour of Holme Parish Council as owners, or should it be for the leaseholders? That's what Dawn has asked.
Bear in mind, we're on the cusp now of seeking tax advice as to whom pays for what. It might be poignant to wait until we figure out who's going to pay the tax, because that could scupper our tax.
Okay, so are we? I'm therefore assuming we are not taking any further action regarding repairs, which takes us on. I'm just inhaled a Malteser. Takes us on to point 120, the action plan, and Jen has produced a really good table which you've all had. Do you want to talk to this?
Yes, so I'll try and keep this quite brief. This action plan is one of the things I've had to do for the clerk qualification that I'm currently studying for, but it does fit into where you've been going as a council. This time last year you were looking at your strategic priorities. As you know, all of you within your committees have been carrying on with your committee-based action plan, but what this tries to do is to draw out the new business, if you like, the new work that you want to focus on. I've had to be quite careful. I'm sure that people will be able to come up with suggestions of things that should be added to that plan, and I would welcome people sharing those suggestions with me, either in this meeting or by email later, so that I can come up with a revised action plan for our next meeting. But I'm just very, very aware that when we embark on Kilka, the council as well as officers are signing up to say you're not going to take on any new projects to give your officers time to get the Kilka done. So I didn't want to go beyond 10 different things in the action plan at this point, because I didn't want to give the Society of Local Clerks the impression that we were embarking on too many new projects when it should be about finishing the Kilka course, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But at this point now, I'd welcome other suggestions about things that should feature in this particular action plan. The action plan isn't trying to cover everything the council does. If it did, it would be going into hundreds of pages, wouldn't it? It is literally trying to focus on the new things or the most critical things that you're looking at during the rest of your term.
I'm going to suggest that we have this at every council meeting and it gets updated on a regular basis, and we use it as a bit of a how are we doing guide. Sarah.
Point one, Jen, which is the committee and meetings review, which we're on with at the moment, and part of the way through. I guess part of the result of that might be that we have a focus which is specifically on community engagement and communication. So I guess I can understand why that is not in here already, but I suppose I'd just like to note that it needs to be there somewhere along the line. Yeah.
And it's the next item we're discussing.
Yes.
So, you
No, but in relation to what plan?
Councillor Black.
Just on the number 10, which is the COVID Memorial Project, I just, in the column which is linked to cost, resources and so on, the line item in there, I wonder if well, I'm not quite sure why how it belongs there, because it's to do with the outside building action projects.
Yeah, that's a mistake. Thank you,
It
Mary.
is.
I'm not sure whether
That was put into make sure you read it.
I was missing something there. Sorry.
Did he spot the other one?
It's quite right.
That's a cunning trick.
So, are we ready to vote? Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Just I wanted to point out one other mistake. It says that the community celebration took place on the 9th of December, and it was November.
It was indeed.
Thank you. She puts them in deliberately.
Have we got more?
But I also wanted to say thank you, Jen. I thought there was some clarity and usefulness.
Really useful. Yeah, I think so. Which is why I think it would be quite good for us to update it and always have it as a thing we look at, because it's a useful discipline. So can we move to a vote to accept this plan and its priorities? All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? Thank you, Joe. That's really good. And then now item 21, the review of committee structure, an update from Sarah and or Chris.
Yeah, we've been meeting over the year since we set up. We're coming back with some proposals that we'd like to recommend it passed on this occasion. The reason for the review was feeling that we've got too many committees. We'd like to free up staff time to help implement actual policies of the council rather than the meetings. When we set the priorities from a climate emergency point of view on case committee, I think 6 out of the 7 policies were all to do with policies that were covered by other elements of the council. So, for example, improving uses of buses is done under service provision. Park and ride could be done under service provision. Solar panels on the toilets the outside building is covered under service provision, and indeed improvements to the outside building will be discussed by service provision in parallel to us on case discussing solar panels. So that's just duplication that doesn't make the council efficient. So that was the reason behind it, and these are the proposals that have come out of those discussions between people who initially went on the working party, and then all the chairs of the various committees were invited to give inputs that have resulted in these proposals.
Thank you. Do you want to add to that? Because I'm going to take each one in turn. So if we'll vote on each one in turn, if you want to say something specific to that one, when we get to it, chip in. So the first one is to consider moving responsibility of large council assets from service provision to finance and management. And this is Lauren.
It's not specifically on that proposal to do that. I agree with that. It's an additional consideration with that the chair of the relevant standing committee, should not also be a trustee of either of those two large assets, in my view.
I don't think we can vote on that because it hasn't been in the papers. I take your point, and we can do it at the next meeting. Are we allowed to vote on that?
Depends if you consider it to fit into number 7, to consider any further actions arising.
Right. So I'll come back to you on number 7 and you propose that bit then. So vote on number 1, moving large assets from service provision to F&M. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? Right, that's unanimous. Second one, do you want to speak to, you've talked about disbanding case, do you want to, those in favour of disbanding case? All those against? Wait.
I'd like to make an amendment to that.
Oh, right.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Right, so I've actually written something down. It's a quotation actually from Kirklees Council about environmental climate action. The pursuit of environmental sustainability is not just a matter of choice, but a fundamental responsibility. So that every action taken by this council will be measured on its positive effect on the environment, both in terms of biodiversity and carbon emissions.
Can we take that, or does that have to come under the process?
How is that amending?
It's to be written in.
To say, to disband case,
we need to do that.
While doing that, ensure that what you've just said happens elsewhere.
Yeah.
Is that allowable?
So we already agreed something, so.
It's not written down, Chris.
Vote on it as an amendment.
Right. So, I'll listen, I'll take you and then we'll vote on the amendment and then...
Just we're on the obviously case, what's happened to Case's budget? Because they've got a budget that's given to the man, so if we're going to disband Case and set up a subcommittee group, what will happen to Case's budget?
I can take that.
Question. I thought that through.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realise you were waiting for me, I was waiting for you.
Obviously, you know, when we were discussing things with Case, we were saying basically that budgets could be given to a different cost centre, they could be wired to other budgets. Just because they, you know, just because we created the budgets now, that doesn't mean we can't move them. They'll just be moving to different committees.
Yeah.
How much?
Well, it'll be the same. It'll be the same essentially. What's in the budget now?
I think Damien wants to know how much it is.
The value, please, Richard. Sorry.
Rich goes to 93
Just
different
make a point of
documents.
clarification in that those projects that are attached to those and those financial commitments that are attached to case will still exist. They will just sit under a different part of the council. So the money will follow wherever their responsibility goes, is what you meant, isn't it?
For environmental projects.
£20,000.
£20,000.
15 in communications and 5 in the climate action. Sorry.
Almost enough money to commission a report.
Thank you. So, we need to vote on the amendment before we vote on the full thing. Alison, can you remember, we're voting on your amendment,
Yes.
so can you propose it and remind us of the wording?
Okay, I'd like to propose that whenever you're discussing anything in the other committees, because there would be no climate action committee, that every action taken by this council will be measured on its positive effect on the environment, both in terms of biodiversity and carbon emissions.
Right. Do we have a seconder for that?
Hang on, can I just make sure I've got that down, please?
Sorry.
Every action. Sorry.
I can just give it to you. Do you want me to just carry it out?
Thank you, that helps,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that all right? Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favour of the amendment? All those against? 2 abstentions, 1. That's carried. So that means the disbanding, we need now to vote on the committee under those circumstances. All those in favour of disbanding the committee without. Okay, against? Abstentions? Fine, that's unanimous. Thank you. The third one, to consider establishing a communications and engagement subcommittee from May 2025. Does anybody want to speak to this?
Can I just ask a question regarding this?
Yes.
It's just going back to what we had before.
Well, it would be a subcommittee. So, for example, the subcommittee could make recommendations. It would answer to full council, basically.
Right.
So you're potentially taking out some of the clerking burden from it. I mean, it's a little bit of a sort of suck it and see, isn't it?
Yeah.
As to whether that works or not.
So it's
But
sort of going back to communications and engagements, which we had before, but without that power.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
And I mean, a lot of the stuff that we needed to do about environment and biodiversity has just become part and parcel of what we do over
Yeah,
time.
no,
We
this is to do
also-
with communications, not
the
environment
need for it to
stuff.
be in a specific committee is it's not urgent in the way it was. Okay, so all those in favour of communications and engagement subcommittee? Thank you. All those against? Abstentions? That's unanimous. To consider scheduling an additional full council meeting for August-September, May 2025. Nobody's spoken to this. Does somebody want to say a word or two? Tom?
Can we make it early September rather than August so it doesn't clash with the summer holidays?
I'm sure we can. Does anybody want to explain why this has been, Chris?
Well, for example, when we were needing more monies in relation to the solar panels, there was a big delay because we had to go back to full council, and there's almost seems like 2.5 month period where there's no full council meeting. So it was to bridge that gap for emergency business to be passed. But also there was a suggestion from the working group that the additional meeting could almost be used as a kind of away day briefing, maybe even setting the priorities that we looked at in the previous agenda item. So an extra meeting giving the council a chance to take stock on its priorities for the year ahead.
Which would be welcome. Any further points to make on that? Okay, all those in favour of scheduling an additional full council meeting? Anybody against? Abstentions? Thank you, that's unanimous. Item 5, to establish, again I'll need somebody to speak to this one because this hasn't been talked about, establishing a standalone grants committee to meet twice a year to manage the allocation of grants. Councillor Wilson. Then,
I think,
right, so I don't mind what time, but if you want to go to Andy first, it's fine.
no, you go first because yours are usually
Okay, so
stuff we all need to
I
know.
do want to give some feedback from the Clark team. We do not recommend this approach, and that's been conveyed to the working group. The possibility I think there is a possibility that the establishment of what's likely to be a very popular grants committee would make recruiting to and completing business for a finance and management committee much more difficult. And our advice would be to leave consideration of grants as part of the remit of finance and management.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, I would also suggest we leave it with F&M. I think it's quite well represented anyway. There are 13 members on F&M, so it's more than half the council in any case. I think the other thing is that I think it's quite important that when we're considering grants, we consider it in light of the whole budget. And if it's a separate grants committee, we won't have sight of that.
Jane?
I would agree as well. I think at the FM meetings, then we managed to get through all of the work. There's plenty of time to discuss the grants, and I don't think it would be a good idea to have an extra place.
Is there anybody who wants to speak against it?
I'd be interested in knowing why this recommendation was put forward by the working group and what their thoughts are on this. Because they've made some really good suggestions so far, which have made sense. So I'd like to know the kind of... Sorry, no, I'm not against this one. I'm not against this one. I'd just like to hear the explanation behind it. Try and win me over.
It was a bad compliment. I was in favour of this one. Sarah, you know.
Simply that is an option. It would be possible, given that it's quite a lot of things to look at, but it would be one way of managing it. And that people might like to go and be involved in grants management, but not necessarily the work of the whole F&M. But of course, the follow-on to that is, if you're that interested, A, you can get on F&M in the first place, but B, you can attend.
Yeah.
So that was, it was a follow-on from a discussion.
No, it's a very valid point, and I agree with a lot of that, because I'm interested in grants, and I probably would like to be involved in voting on it. I know it's a committee I want to put myself forward for, but I've not been on finance and management for quite a while, and I have a lot of interest in stuff in service provision, but you can't be on all committees, because then it takes up too much of your time. So that's a very good point.
I think we might move to a vote, unless anybody's got a new point to raise. I think we'll move to a vote on this. All those in favour of establishing a standalone grants committee to meet twice a year, can I see your hands, please? Right? No. Okay, I don't really need to ask for against and abstention. I suppose I should, just in case you're all abstaining. All those against? Thank you. And abstention?
Yes.
1, 2, 3 abstentions. Thank you. Okay, point 6. This is just to note that a report will be made in February of the trialling of the new approach to planning.
I would just like to say the planning committee will do a report, as it says, it will be submitting a report to the full council on the 3rd of February, and I think it highly likely that this report will not be a unanimous report. I think we'll be probably presenting at least two different views, and in which case the decision would be made by full council.
Thank you. Charles?
Can we just have a little bit on what this new approach is?
Sorry, the one we're trialling at the moment. Yeah. It's that we've identified a set of types of application where which we think are more important than the dormer windows or small extensions. So there's about seven categories. It includes everything in the green belt and everything in conservation areas or new build. It has, I think, reduced the number of applications we look at by approximately half. So I think the general feeling is it's working. That approach is working well. So it does actually reduce the amount of time councils spend, and also that the clerking team spend. But what it does not do is free up any time in the calendar for other meetings. Okay.
Okay. So that's to note. And then we've got a rather vague one, so I rely on Sarah or Chris to say, to consider any further actions from your committee. Have you got any further things we need to vote on?
I think, well, we didn't want the working group to come to an end in case there was potential further work to be done on what might happen to planning.
Yeah.
That was the reason.
So we want leave to continue really, as necessary.
There were, yeah.
Sorry, do you want it to come to an end or continue?
We want it to continue.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Pending what comes out of the review of the planning.
Okay. All those in favour of the working group continuing? Thank you. All those against? Abstentions? Fine. That's unanimous. Okay.
Chair,
Thank you.
could I just raise a point I raised
Yes.
earlier?
Sorry. I forgot, Lauren.
Yeah, so basically, and I'll speak to this briefly if you want as well. So my proposal is that the stand committee, which is now definitely going to be F&N, that is overseeing both those two large assets, is not also a trustee of either of them. And I'm thinking here, not so much about what happens in the actual meetings and in votes, it's more all that happens in between meetings and all the sort of decisions and conversations and so on that happen, with the clerk in between. And I just think it muddies it a little bit if that person is both is a chair. It maybe applies to vice chair as well,
Well, I think we need to be a bit careful.
Yeah, sure.
I
But certainly with the chair, and I don't know whether Jen had any view on that, but
I mean, it's an interesting suggestion, and obviously it would be for the new council year. I've seen Emma calling in 2 seconds. It would be for the next council year. People who are already chairs and trustees will stay where they are for the time being. And it depends how much people feel there is a need for. I mean, in the case of things like the Civic and Holme Library, where we appoint trustees anyway, it isn't a conflict of interest because it's all our interest in a way. But anyway, Damien.
Just to say that we have declarations of interest system in place, and could it not be catered for on the level on there, so the group could decide whether that person should speak on that matter or should leave the room. So you could chair the rest of the meeting for F&M.
No, well, they wouldn't be leaving the room. I think we've already ruled that councillors who are trustees as a councillor wouldn't be required because it's important that they're there to tell us what's going on.
Indeed, it gives an option if we don't want to speak.
I think Lawrence is not so much talking about a conflict of interest as a concern that a councillor might lose sight of which is the more important of their roles if they are, for instance, chair of F&M and a trustee. Not that their interest is compromised, but that they might start caring more about the trust than the council or something of that sort. I'm assuming that's what
I think so, and also just to repeat, in response to what Damien said, I am thinking more, as I said, about what happens in the business in between meetings, behind the scenes almost, rather than what actually happens in the committee meetings.
I mean, this is, sorry, Andy, go on.
No, I'm just trying to get a bit of clarification here because I'm chair of F&M and I'm a trustee. Are you suggesting that I couldn't be chair or that I shouldn't be a trustee or?
I'm not suggesting personally, but
No. I'm in that position.
That's right. I don't think it should be that one person should occupy both roles.
That you would either have to choose to be a trustee or the chair.
Even though I'm a nominated trustee.
Yeah, that is the proposal. We haven't voted on it yet. So, I mean, it's an interesting point and a perfectly valid one to consider. I mean, it depends whether we feel as strongly as Lawrence does about any sort of compromising. Chris?
I was going to ask the clerks if they have a view on it as to whether they see it as being an issue that we should be concerned about.
Well, I've got a definite view that in terms of voting on issues, even though your trustees are your representatives, I still think they shouldn't take part in votes. So that would be my view.
I think we already do that. We encourage them to speak because they're an important source of information, but I think we ask them not to vote Was that you scratching? Or?
No, but I ended up before.
Sorry.
It's a bit of a funny one. Like, well, it's not till next year anyway, so we're thinking about this, and by then the chairs have to be renominated each time anyway. So at that point, Andy wouldn't be in post. But it's a difficult one because he's doing a lot of good work for the council as the trustee, and as chairman as well. And it's like he's got to choose next year whether he wants to do one or the other, and it's a bit unfair because it's kind of like he's putting him in that position. It's not personal, I don't get that. And if he wasn't a trustee, then it would be fine. My personal opinion on the chairs is that I think that every 2 years, someone who's been a chair for the same committee for 2 years, I'd like to see that they move on and let somebody else be a chair. Anyway, that's my views on the chairmanship. Because I think that it's good to get other people have a chance in different ways of working.
Hugh, then Sarah, then Jane.
If we don't want trustees voting, but we have trustees the chair, that could lead to a difficult situation if we get to the point where the chair is expected to cast.
Chairs don't have to use their casting vote. It's not. They can say this will carry over till we can discuss it further. So I guess you'd fall back on that if we voted that way. Sarah?
It's not a matter of personalities, is it? And
No,
I think
no, absolutely not. This is
you
not
either, you either decide that you can do both, or you can't. End of. In my view.
You made that decision yourself. Don't bolt your gin, Sarah. Are you saying that a person should make their own decision about whether they should either be a chair or a trustee? So you're supporting the suggestion. Who was next? Jane was next.
Thank you.
I think that as a chair, that you can be an impartial chair. You know, you're a chair and you're responsible, have that responsibility for that particular committee. And particularly if you're sort of nominated to be a trustee as well, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to occupy both of those roles without any conflict. I'm not saying whether they should vote or not, but I don't see why they shouldn't have both of those roles.
Thank you. Sorry, we're just passing. There's a Theresa May moment going on. Any further comments, views, concerns, questions, Martin?
Is perhaps something behind what Lawrence is saying is that there's a potential for compromise of the chair if the agenda contains items and they show things going away that could be demonstrably in favour of the trust. You know, that it could be seen that the chair is influencing things inappropriately. It's only a thought, I'm just thinking out loud really.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave you because you've spoken, haven't you? So is there anybody who hasn't yet spoken who wants to speak? Donna.
I'm a bit changing actually. I can't understand why you can't do both, and I think that's a decision you can make in your own mind. And yeah, okay, I could see perhaps if you trust or something, you might make it a little bit biased, but you deal with that yourself and you become impartial. When you're chairing something, you should always become impartial anyway. So I absolutely do not see why you can't do both. And if it becomes an issue where it's, I don't know, on something, then can't we give dispensations on just one to both?
I mean, it kind of assumes there's nobody else on the committee in a funny sort of way. Tom?
I'm going to make a proposal that we write to or email YLCA and ask them for their guidance on this and what they think. And if they're happy with it and think it's okay, then yeah.
Okay, that's a proposal. Do we have to deal with that before I listen to Lawrence?
Let's listen to Lawrence.
Let's listen to Never mind what we're supposed to do, Lawrence. Speak.
What I will say is, this has come from, it's based on personal experience over the last 2 years, or 18 months, whatever it is. And I know you come back to say, well, there's plenty of other committee members and so on. keep saying that's not the point. It's not what's coming up at committee meetings, it's what's going on in between. There is a lot discussed, and anyone else who's chair of other committees will know, there's a lot to, talked about, a lot goes on behind the scenes. I am really glad now, with hindsight, that I wasn't in both roles. Because I think I would have felt compromised on quite a number of things, and I think I've probably taken a much more objective view on quite a number of issues that come up in between committee meetings.
We've got two proposals going on. One is that we say you can't be both, and one is that we seek advice. I think it makes sense to vote on the seek advice one for, yes.
I think now that you've had the discussion, this is actually a new motion, and I don't think it fits under the agenda that you've got at the moment. So it could go on to your agenda for next time, and any decision, I don't think you should be making any decision about it now. That would be my advice.
Okay. Well, in which case I suggest we defer it to next time and ask YLCA's advice before next time. Okay. Thank you. Which brings us to EPICS and the Walk by Bus initiative. Who's going to speak to this?
Me, probably. Right. This has been overtaken, as to some extent expected, this has been overtaken by events to some extent, that in as much as the match funding that was mentioned is no longer required, because there's other arrangements coming for Olympics. So this is more now just about, in principle, if you like, that we are working in partnership. It's a very informal partnership, I have to say. There's no partnership agreement being set up here, but it's to get a sense of what council feels about this. And the main reason for this, and the Walks by Bus is part of it, if you like. I don't want to extend it too far, because this is what you've got in front of you, but I have to say this is largely about where their work and the Active Travel Hub aligns very much with the work that we're doing on, sort of promoting sustainable transport and other active travel activities and so on. And there are a number of areas that are now arising where they are aligned, and basically bringing that to council to consider.
So I guess what we're considering and voting on is not to give them the money as originally proposed, but that we approve of what they're doing. We want to be alongside them and working in partnership where we can. Is that a reasonable conclusion?
You do therefore need to do an amendment for the
Right. Can you think of the wording for an amendment?
Apparently so.
Approval of partnership working with ethics in principle?
Yes, I think so, on our aligned interests.
Okay. All those in favour of working with ethics in principle on our aligned interests? All those against? Abstentions? 2. Thank you. 3. Where's the symbol? Oh, I didn't. Thank you. So that's carried. And we move on to number 1, 2, 3. And before we move to a discussion, I just want to say formally and to be minuted what a huge success this event was. And congratulations to everybody who was involved with it, but particularly the small group who did a lot of the work. And well done you. But the working group to report.
Can I just say how pleased we've been at all the feedback we've had? We've had such positive feedback that's still coming in. People are still saying that their group has recruited new volunteers, new members, etc. And they have pushed for it to be repeated as an annual event. But at the working group, when we met, we thought we should establish it by having another one next year, so that the ones who were excluded this time, who couldn't be involved this time, could be included, and give it a slightly different focus. And then once it's established, rather than repeat it every year and people become a little bit weary of it, we would move for every other year. That was what we agreed as a working group. And you know, that I think, you know, I think it achieved more than we expected it to achieve in terms of our reach of work. You know, that these were groups that we really should be supporting and working with to achieve our strategic aims. So thank you for everybody who took part in it. It was great.
So we're being asked to consider authorising the working group to continue its work to plan for next year, and we don't have to plan for 2 years thereafter, we're just approving them to work on next year's work. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? It's unanimously carried. We also are asked to consider if there are any other actions we want to. Are there other things you wish us to do that we should be voting on now? No? Anybody think of any further actions we should consider at this point?
More people help.
Yes, yes, actually, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I got a bit taken out of stuff because I was just too busy, and I think it needs everybody to put some work into
Because it
it.
does promote the parish council, it does reflect on
very much
us.
so.
And I think that would be a change that we would want to be, rather than just be a welcoming committee at the door, we would want to have it as a much more positive time when we are engaging and talking to the public about what we're doing and about what we want to do, and why we're putting up the precept, you know, and thinking about how they want the money to be spent, and do they want to support the civic hall by putting the precept up even more. This is our real chance to engage with a large number of people.
Good.
So
Anyway,
thank you, Donna. I think
another
that's a good
formal
point
thank you from us.
to include more people. That we want everybody to take ownership of this.
Thank you. Okay, which brings us on to item 124, which is just to make sure we always stick to our procedures properly and we can't be accused of bias or anything.
Yeah, apologies if this all sounded rather cryptic, but basically it's just a reminder of what our standing orders say, which is a member of the public shall not speak for more than three minutes. What I would say, just to point out that it is possible for a member of the public to speak for longer than 3 minutes if the chair presiding proposes to suspend standing orders to allow a contribution to go on beyond 3 minutes. So you can do it, you've just got to formalise it using our standing orders and making clear where you are suspending them. But unless you say something about it, then and you allow someone to speak for more than three minutes, you know, we would be at risk again of not keeping with our own standing orders.
It would be a problem if, for instance, there was a difference of opinion and one party member of the public was allowed longer than another member of that sort of thing. That's what it's about.
Yeah. So I've been dealing with these concerns that have been raised. It's not yet a formal complaint, and I have answered informally the queries raised. So that's all I can tell you at the moment, because I've not had any further response from the members of the public involved.
So, chairs of committees and acting chairs of committees, be careful you're fair, even-handed to the public about speaking, and if they're going to get longer, make sure you propose some changes to standing order. Thank you.
And you may want to consider whether you would use a timer.
Oh yes, do we want to purchase a timer, which would mean people could see it? I mean, not just a timer for you to sit and look at, but a timer that would be visible.
I find the countdown clock puts me off when I'm trying to work out my numbers or words.
Everybody's got a timer on. Everybody in this day and age has got a timer on the phone. This gentleman tonight timed himself. It's easily done without. We don't need much time.
Does anybody feel? Does anybody want to propose we buy a timer? No. COVID memorial working group update.
So that's yes, that's me. Right, I'll be brief. Sometimes this project has felt like pushing a very heavy stone up a very steep hill. Well, slowly making progress. So I'd like everybody to note that we will open up. There's an end in sight. We will open both memorials, and get open the right word, on Saturday the 5th of April. So everybody's invited, and I hope as many of you as possible, given you notice, many of you as possible can appear. There has been progress. At Holme Library, the bushes which have been waiting to be removed. So there was an issue about, or potentially an issue about biodiversity net gain on the Holme Library extension. Evidently the bushes were not included in the biodiversity net gain, which is discovered last week. So the bushes have gone. So too has that ugly big blue library sign that's been taken down too. The apple trees, all the apple trees have been ordered, and the most concrete thing really is that we do have a plaque, and I think my glamorous assistant over there is going to exhibit the Thank you. So this is the plaque, so that will be mounted on the wall of the library, pretty obviously. The wording for the one in Sands will be pretty similar, so we're keeping it very short and clear. But that would be a rectangular plaque mounted on the stone table.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So if memory serves, this was Jason Brooks.
It was Jason Brooks. Yes.
He been invited.
Of course, he is part of the working party.
Oh, of course,
yes.
But we should invite him as a sort of guest of honour.
Well,
really,
I've asked him if he would cut the ribbon, but
yeah.
I think we know, those of us who know Jason, know that he's a very self-effacing person. But the date has been chosen because it's a day when he isn't working.
Good.
That's not nice.
So he has no excuse.
Right, that's noted. And we need to authorise the working group to consider their work through to its conclusion in April. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Unanimously carried. Communications with co-leaders. Single point of contact with co-leaders. It dribbles on. Do you want to report on that?
Yes. Well, so we've gone from planning to start a conversation with you from to you'll have seen from the email chain that there's some further information, and I know I'm sure councillors will want to speak to their reactions to the information as well. So please make allowances for anomalies in the formatting of the emails. I was just trying to sort of put it into a proper timeline for you. And I know that communications with Kirklees Council is featured in previous full council's agendas. The existing situation is, in view of the lapsed charter, ward councillors are the sole channel for the electorate to communicate, in that clearly many of you feel is not sustainable or realistic. So the generic resolution that you've got there at the moment, or the generic motion rather, to consider any actions with regards to communications with Kirklees Council is just to give you the opportunity as a council to, you know, see if there's anything more concrete you want to come up with. I know that Councillor Brooke put forward a possible suggestion in his email regarding it, in terms of a single point of contact for planning at least.
From my perspective, it was just having spoken to the planners Julia statement down at the council there, they suggested that sometimes that the officers could get a bit swamped with how much information they're getting in if they're getting it from a number of sources. So if we could, certainly from the planning aspect of it before we meet there, we usually have allocations for wards, so you would be given something specific in your ward to look at, that one there. So if we could, if you have a planning question, it might be worth speaking to one of your colleagues on the planning committee, just to ask them if they've already raised that. So rather than us duplicating and getting downtown there and making it obviously unmanageable for them. And beyond that one there, obviously you have got your ward councils you can speak to there. It's just a matter of managing how much traffic we get to town. I'm sure they'll be happy to get the answers back to us, but if we ask so many times, I think we just get swamped with it. So the single point of contact idea was to basically go through the planning committee if it's a planning need for the parish councillors, and also they can link in with the ward councils if required. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. Anybody else? Andy?
We talked about previously, we lost the charter in the Parish disputes now, which covered a lot of the communication that should be in place. That seems to have disappeared. But didn't we talk about setting up some sort of communication with other town and parish councils and having a joint approach, so that we're all asking for the same thing?
I can give you some information on that. I keep suggesting it, and we do, and people go, yeah, good idea, and don't respond in the end. I will keep plugging away at it, because I had this as my objective for the year as leader, and it's looking like I'm not going to achieve it, but I will keep plugging away at particularly Murfield and Meltham. Jane?
Is it correct that there used to be a system Wi-Fi?
We have a charter.
Right.
Well, we never told anything about it.
It was only a couple of years ago that stopped. I don't know, I've been asking around, and I'm just wondering what happened to that.
Charles, you must be wanting to speak to me.
Yeah, the original charter was pretty much ignored by Kirklees from the moment it was signed. So it was never really an active living thing, and that's not the case in other authorities. You know, there isn't a. So the chief exec has talked about holding up a charter for the community governance review. I don't really see that the two kind of do need to run together, but ultimately, if that's Kirklees' view on it, you have to either accept that or encourage them to come to it differently. But I don't see the need for the two to run together. The community governance review is a very separate thing. Whether that leaves one parish council or 30 parish councils, you still want to have a process by which they can engage, and I wouldn't have thought that would make any difference between what the size of those parish councils were or how many members there were of each council. So I don't see that it needs to be, but that's the response that's coming from.
I'll leave you to last. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's what I was planning.
Oh right, 1, 2, 3.
I just wanted to thank Councillor Greaves for sharing the document from Wakefield.
Yes.
I thought it was brilliant, and I was very jealous. And if there is any way, I don't think it would solve all of our issues that we're talking about in terms of the communication, but it would go a long way if we had a similar model in Kirklees. And if there was a way of us, I'm sure Kirklees must be aware of it, but if there's a way of us sort of emphasising Kirklees how interesting it is.
Yeah, and that if Wakefield can make it work and feel it benefits them, and it is the point. They wouldn't do it if they didn't think it was useful for them. who was next? Jane and Andy, I think.
Okay, yeah, I had a look at the information from Wakefield. I thought it looked, like something that was very viable and could be set up in Kirklees and have all the different town councils and parish councils meeting. I think they met quarterly, didn't they, in Wakefield? I don't know who would chair it. I don't know how it would work in terms of whether it would be councillor officers or councillors that would have the Kirklees agenda. So I don't know how that works in terms of Wakefield. Whether
It's a elected cabinet member
okay.
who more governments and normally chairs it, but they also have deputies.
I don't see that would be a problem for Kirklees.
Hang on, the people queuing to speak. Andy, then Jay. Andy, then Sarah. No, then Steve, then Sarah.
For me, I don't want to sort of create something that's overburdening them, and I suspect that was what was wrong with the original one, that it was just too complicated and it never worked. I just want something that says that when I email an officer, I can expect a reply. And I don't get that now.
And you're speaking as the chair of a committee. This is chair of planning talking, not.
Well, as was, yeah.
Steve?
Can we ask Councillor Greaves to show the Wakefield document to the Chief Exec at Kirklees in case they haven't seen it? I would hope they've seen it, but they might well not have, and sort of just draw it to their attention and say, how about this as a model to work on?
I'm quite happy for the clerk to do that, and if Steve wants to talk to us separately, but there's different hats in this, and there's three for me. But I think part of it is about the correct process. So just to be clear, within Wakefield, they only directly engage with chair of the whole parish or town council, or the clerk. Not so it would be just two individuals that they engage with. Sometimes both will attend, sometimes one will attend those quarterly meetings, sometimes they don't. But there's more towns and parishes over in Wakefield. But this isn't a case of each chair of committee or subcommittee, it is the overall chair and the clerk to the council. And that, it's about those correct communication lines. At the moment, there's councillor so within Kirklees, you've got councillor inquiries, which is for elected members. There's also MPs inquiries. So in terms of if you like day-to-day stuff, I wouldn't have thought it'd be a particular effort to set up a parallel stream for clerks' inquiries, to run in the same way. But I wouldn't think they'd be wanting to start entertaining 26 of us times 5 keying things into them. And we'd need to have a process for how that was done, which would, that would be the council as a body agreeing something for the client to put in. But honestly, simply put, if they just treated the client like another elected member and did it through council inquiries, it would be very simple and straightforward, I would have thought. It's the other stuff on policy. So the bit that Wakefield do will be to share some information. It's not without issues. So over in Wakefield, the highways contract is with Amy, so lots of issues about having to do inspections of lamp columns in order to put hanging baskets up and Christmas lights. So just because there's a dialogue doesn't mean to say there's no problems. But actually,
that dialogue can be an argument.
Actually, it helped in that a halfway house was found, and Christmas wasn't cancelled. But yeah,
there's other models for it, and as an aside, there is another Kirklees councillor who's also a clerk. He's an assistant clerk at Morley Council. So, he's also chair of the local branch of the SLCC. So, and Jenny's met him at Ebden. So I've asked him what arrangements Leeds operates under. So they're just going to get back to us on that as well.
Thank you very much. So,
And when he does, I'll pass it on to Jen.
So you've been waiting a long time.
I suppose the thing for me is that this is about something really quite fundamental to do with communication, collaboration, and meeting the needs of the community. And the parish council and Kirklees Council in this instance serve those purposes through their civil servants and their elected officers. So it seems to me that what we're missing here, and I really don't know why it is a change of attitude which is needed, which should then lead to changes in behaviour. But unless you've got a beginning of a dialogue with the people who can make decisions in Kirklees, because we've made it perfectly clear, as have other town council, parish councils, made it perfectly clear that we would like to have a constructive working relationship. And we don't seem to be getting anywhere with that. And I'm absolutely with you, Charles. The response from the new CEO didn't take me any further along that line at all. And I do not understand why there is this reluctance, because we can help each other.
Okay, I know we're having got ahead of time, we're getting behind again, so I think we're all frustrated by this. I think all the things that have been suggested we should pursue as far as we can, rely and look forward to Charles digging out more stuff and see what we can do. Plug away at it like dripping on a stone. Item 127, the Everyday Life Pledge. This is quite a big document, and I'm not sure who has the time to. I mean, we could set up a working group, but I don't know whether we have the capacity to review this and come up with recommendations. I mean, if there are people willing, Sarah.
I think, well, from my point of view, and I'm just speaking for myself here, I think it's really quite simple at one level. Because what we're being asked to do is to say we're in partnership with this.
Yeah, but
I can't think of any reason why we would say no, we're not.
Alright. Any other views? Andy?
I find it difficult to propose anything that's in there, and I have gone through it briefly. It's all good stuff, but there's some fairly sort of lofty ideas in there. And you just wonder where the resources are going to come from. We've just been talking about, we can't even get a conversation going, and we're embarking on something like this. I just wonder where the resources are going to come from.
But this is a policy statement, isn't it?
It's
not about action. It's not
I have no
describing
problem.
action.
I have no problem with what's been suggested there. I have a problem
With that in
mind.
mind, with that in mind, it sounds as though we should say we think it's wonderful. I mean, mother love an apple pie in a way. It also sounds as though it says here to consider actions. We're not considering any actions. Would I be right in taking this as our?
Well, I would say that there will be things that we decide to do that align quite nicely with some of the things in here, and that would be the actions that we.
Yeah, but we're not proposing having a working group to look for things that fit this and make it a thing we focus on for a while. No. Okay, that's that. Local plan review, Mary.
Yes, the local plan review, you had the notes, I won't go on at any length really. The way that we are approaching the Kirklees local plan review, it is to set up a partnership meeting with a fairly long list of local organisations, and we'll be meeting, inaugural meeting on Tuesday the 14th of January. So we've had a bit of a practice. We did a response to the Peak District National Park review, and I think that probably taught us in some ways, you know, a good way of going about things. So all we're asking for now is to be allowed to continue the work that we've started. If you're interested, I'll just read out the list of groups that we'll be inviting to the inaugural meeting, and there may be others. I would certainly like suggestions of any others that you'd like to be added. So the list is Eco Homes, HVCAP, Home Valley Vision, Home First Business Together, Home First Civic Society, Home First Conservation Group, it's quite a long list, Home First Pride, Holme Business Association, Holme Community Civic Trust, Longley Farm, the manager from there, River Home Connections, and a formal invitation to Kirklees councillors from Home Valley North and Home Valley South. So if there are any organisations that you think would be missed from there, let me know. Thank you.
Right. Can we not discuss the detail of it now? If this is just another organisation, can you just let Mary know?
Can I just ask a
Yes.
question now? Is this part of the planning committee?
The working group does belong to the planning committee. Yes, it does. Yeah, it's not a free flow.
But if you want to be involved in it, I'm sure you can be.
We did recruit members who are not on the planning committee at the last four
you don't
council
have to be on the
meetings.
planning
You know,
committee to be involved.
There's room for more, but the important thing is we need people on this partnership who are willing to do some work, because I think the outcome will be a very hefty document when we come to responding in full to the Kirklees, the review of the Kirklees plan.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Working groups update, item 129.
Yeah, so just to say, we in committees and now in council, we're just reviewing the various working groups that have been set up since May 2023, so that we know which ones are still active and so forth. So the list that you received with papers for full council is just really about reviewing those groups.
I think it's great that we have all these working groups. I think it's fantastic the way we're taking on more and more, moving wider and wider into the community. I think it's great stuff. Knackering, but great.
So if I can quickly go through this, clearly the committee structure and meeting schedule working group is still active. The Code of Conduct working group is to be started. That was one that was set up at the last council meeting. The communication protocol, that consists of Councillor Blacker, Councillor Ransbury, Councillor Whitelaw. It connects with what we've just been talking about with Kirklees Council, still active. Yeah, the communication protocol.
We've just voted for it.
Yeah.
We've just voted for it, so
Yeah,
that's
still active. The Office of Member protocol, that work's concluded. Yeah. The Civic Boundaries one is concluded. The Nature's Home one, I'm not sure whether that's concluded or not.
I'm not sure what it is.
I don't know what it is.
I know what Nature's Home is.
The young man that came to speak to us.
I think they've changed their remit now, Jen, so that doesn't exist.
Is this River Home Connections?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm a trustee on River Home Connections, and it's correct what Councillor Morgan is saying. They're investigating, they want us to be a responsible body to hold the funds, and they've changed the plan and stuff.
Right, so
we can write that.
Yeah. So that one's concluded in terms of Sounds Recreation obviously completed, and then the priorities are concluded as well. Is that everyone else's understanding too?
Mm-hmm.
Lovely, you.
Okay, 130 is just a brief thing. If you bring your equipment in here, either for a big meeting or an individual meeting with clerks, and you plug it in, you need to get it pat tested, and the clerks will let us know when the pat testing is going to happen, when they're due to come in. If you don't plug it in, you don't have to. So if you can keep it off. Yes?
Can we have one of those devices that we use for the community celebration? You know, those extension leads, so that we can plug in an unpat tested device.
Well, it would be just as easy to get your devices pat tested, wouldn't it?
It would, but if it was just here, because you don't always know that you're going to plug something in. You know, I might want to show a film to you one evening. But, you know, I mean, you know, if we just have one here that we can use, that any of us can use for any reason, rather than us having all our devices.
Okay, we'll look at
tested.
We'll look at the cost of that. Donna.
What if your electronic equipment is already pat tested by somebody else?
Well, if you've got a sticker on it, you'll be fine.
Pulled it off.
Ah, well, then you'll have to get it done again and get another sticker.
Yeah.
I don't think actually.
Anyway, this is not a discussion. Let's move on, for heaven's sake. Ward asset register.
Yeah, sorry, this is me, sorry. Yes, I know, I did say I was going to get it out for this full council. I just have not had time. So it is still on my list of to-do, and it will be for the next full council meeting.
Councillor training, we offered to train, and the people who weren't able to make the full council training, we've had nobody who missed that has expressed any interest in having this training. I am still willing to do it in January, but I'm not going to set up a date if nobody's going to come. So it's up to you to let us know if you want it.
This particular item, Chair, is just reminding people that you've now got you've got a review evaluation form, and again I'll just make sure that revised evaluation sheet gets sent out to those councillors who've had training since the June full council meeting for completing and presenting to a later meeting. It's another task I'm behind on.
And we have what amounts to an emergency grant application from the Full Life Food Bank. The F&M committee knows about this. We gave them the maximum we were allowed to, which is £1,500. They need, we are recommending to full council that we give them another 3,500. This would enable them to buy the fresh fruit and veg for the year. They still need to raise other funds, but that would at least get that bit done and dusted, and that's how they would spend it if we gave it to them. The points were made in F&M that, you know, this is people hungry at Christmas. I don't know whether you want a long debate or to move to a vote on this. Tom?
Yeah, I bumped into Ian, I bumped into him before on a Monday after a council meeting actually at Lidl. And he was picking up food that was close to its sell-by date to pass on to people on that. And he was going to Lidl, he'd been to the Co-op already, he was going to Aldi, doing all this kind of thing. And I got into a chat with him about it, and he said like they have a massive shortfall every month. They don't have enough food to give out to people, and they're having to dip into church funds every week, like hundreds of pounds. Talking about like I can't remember the numbers because it was about a year ago I spoke to him, and at the time I said to him, put in a grant application because it's not fair that the church is paying for the people's food. It should be. Well, I don't think it's very fair in general in society at the moment, various things, but I didn't think it was fair that the church is having to pay for it, and it wasn't sustainable because they've got to pay for their own buildings and all the other things that they do as well. So yeah, I just wanted to make people aware that the church have been subsidising this and paying a lot of their own money into this themselves over the last few years. And I think we should help them.
I would just say that F&M voiced concerns, and I'm sure people in this room want to, that this just can't go on forever with us always providing the food for them. The help he needs, really, And I think I've got one person from Holme Library and Dawn are willing to give him a couple of hours, is in where and how to apply for grants. And he could do with that. He needs it because we can't just keep paying for the food bank every time. Well, we could, but we probably don't wish to. So I think if you could give some thought to how we might get that sort of help to him. I think the short-term ask is F&M, so let's give him 3.5 now. We're recommending we get this Christmas dealt with and the year's fruit and veg. But we need to look at ways we might be able to help him, and we can't just delegate the clerks to him. We've got to. So if anybody had any skills or knowledge or time to go and help do some of that sort of fundraising happening. I know Gemma's giving some of her own time at the moment to fundraising online, not clerical time but her own. And the other thing I would say to you, just before I let you, is you're all free to make a contribution as well. It's just across the road. So, I mean, I've given some people in Holme Library, of several people. Jane, do you need to speak before Jane?
I was just going to say, if you're making a contribution, you don't have to physically go in there now. The thing I've been doing for them is they have an online donation.
Oh, good, then I'll give you 20
which I will be circulating tomorrow.
Right, thank you. Jane?
Yeah, I don't know whether he's maybe sort of lost his way a little bit, but there is the other food bank based at the Phoenix on Northern Road, and I feel like it would be good if they could get together just to get some advice perhaps on how to run it, because I've been over there and they seem to run it very efficiently.
I think it's been made worse by the fact that his wife is unwell, and my impression is that it was his wife who did a lot of the organisation and admin, and he looked after the souls. I don't know. Can we not record that bit? Can we? Maybe this should have been a private session.
Well, it isn't in private session, so it's in the recording.
Right. So we need.
If you want to go into private session, then you need to take a vote.
I think we've already said the things that we wouldn't wish to say in public, so it's done. Tom?
It's not just a local issue, it's a national issue, and I think we should write to our MP about it and say to him, this is a big thing that's going on, and what are the government going to do about it, and they're going to support the people and support the families and the food banks, and we shouldn't have food banks. Like, I remember growing up when I was a kid, and like walking around and seeing people on the streets, and I was thinking, oh, when I'm older, there's not going to be stuff like this going on. And
there's more of it.
Yeah, and it's worse. And it's food banks. There weren't food banks when I was a kid. There probably should have been food banks when I was a kid, because I bet those people who actually needed them back then, and there were people who did go hungry. And at least these people are actually getting help now, which is a good thing. But I think that I'd like my son to grow up in 30, 40 years' time, not have food banks around and not as many homeless people around.
And we moved backward. When I was a teenager, I remember my dad saying, thank God youngsters don't have to go to the soup kitchen like I did. And they are again. Mary?
Could we move to a vote?
Yes. Rich?
I just want to make clear where the money's coming from.
Okay.
That's all. Is it coming from general reserves?
That was what we said at F&M, wasn't it? Yes. So, can I see those in favour of giving 3,500 from general reserves to the Full Life Food Bank? All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 abstentions. Thank you. That's that. Climate action case. Communications and engagement strategy.
This is to approve and adopt.
Yeah. So basically, it's been through several iterations, and I personally would see this as a working document. We'll have things added to it, no doubt, in terms of how we wish to communicate the sorts of things we should, might and could do. But as it stands, I think it covers most of the means of communication that we are utilising or aspire to utilise in the future.
All those who wish to approve and adopt this, all those in favour? Against? Abstentions? That's unanimous. Vice Chair of Staffing Committee.
Just a note.
Oh, we're noting that Councillor Bailey was Vice Chair of Conduct. Sorry?
Noted.
Noted. And we're noting that Councillor Blacker has become the Staff Performance and Development Lead on that committee as well.
Noted.
And
We need to amend standing orders to clarify that the staffing committee line manages the clerk. It's slightly blurred in what our standing orders say at the moment.
So,
And doing a particular Kilgore assessment, I realised that was wrong.
okay, so that we're noting all of those. Moving on to a planning committee issue, item 139, road safety.
Well, in the interest of sorting out the multiplicity of EMRs, I think that the expenditure under this heading is more or less be concluded, so we want to return the balance to general reserves.
This doesn't happen often. A committee's giving us money back to go into reserve.
Iron's under control, you see.
And that so brings us on towards then. Chairs.
No, you need to approve it.
Oh, we have to, all those in favour of taking Mary's money? All those against? Abstentions? Okay, that's unanimously approved. The Chair's report, I obviously attended the big community celebration. In November, I attended the remembrance service. I went to the home. Usually, I go to the Holme one, but as leader, I went to the home first one and laid a wreath at the memorial. And I had the delightful experience of going to the Honley Male Voice Choir at the town hall a couple of Saturday afternoons, and the even more delightful experience of the Linley Junior Choir, who I'd only ever seen on the television, and they are fantastic. And they are, either last year or this year, in the International Eisteddfod, they're the best choir in the world. Fantastic. And they really were. So that's what I've been up to. And in answer to a member of the council who saw me there and made snide remarks referring to Roy Keane's remarks about, did you enjoy your prawn sandwiches? I had one mince pie. Kirklees Ward Councillors, reports from questions 2. Do three of you have 4?
Oh, wow.
4, yeah. 4.
Five.
Growing every day. Have anything you want to raise, anything you need to tell us, anything,
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
The parking embargo, the works in the Home First Access Plan, they're obviously in place from the 25th of November until next Monday apparently, which would mean 2 days before Christmas chaos begins again. I don't know if that's going to happen now, but obviously the roads are all open around there to get the traffic flowing through, so if anyone asks you, hopefully it should be after Christmas before the chaos starts again.
Thank you.
Chaos doesn't have to be chaos.
The progress.
Progress, not
Progress.
That's what we're looking for.
At some point, Holgate will start.
I've got a question actually.
We've got a question here.
Yes, a question to Councillor Brook. So I attended a public meeting in May at Nemo Club about the car parking around Nemo and Firth and about the charges coming in. At the meeting, Councillor Firth mentioned that he'd had a phone call from a resident who said that the car park at the Sands was not owned by Kirklees. Councillor Brook was going to take it away and bring it back to the members of the meeting about that. So the question to you is, have you found out if it's owned by Kirklees Council or is it owned by privately owned.
I do believe it was a discussion point, but I don't know whether I took that on, but if you'd like me to go away from it, I will find out with a land registry check on it there and make sure it is a...
Yeah, and if you could report back at the next meeting, that would be good.
Which car park were they referring to?
The
The
sports centre.
the polo or the one over the bridge?
The one by the pub.
The one by the leisure centre.
Yeah.
Yeah, is owned by Hercules Council.
Yeah, well, Councillor Firth had a phone call from a resident who said to him that it wasn't owned by, it was owned by privately owned. And at the meeting, I'm pretty sure, Stephen, can you remember? I think Councillor Brooke did say he'd take it away, but...
I'm not quite sure what your points are on this, Tom, unfortunately.
No,
it's not going to change me anyway, because the parking costs start coming in January anyway, regardless of that one there. So, but if you'd like to know the factual basis, I'll get back in touch with you.
Yeah, purely thank you, point. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I've spoken to other council officers about the Sands Recreation Ground, and it's on all the lists as being part of Hercules Council.
Yeah, I thought it was as well, but there was some confusion at the meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Can I just interject by saying again, I've left something on the agenda that I should have taken up. That last one about Tal Tracy, just ignore that.
So correspondence with Woven, there's little to say, isn't there?
Yeah, you'll be pleased to know I've next to nothing to say. It was an item that came up at last council. I took it away as a task. As you'll see from the correspondence, I think it's concluded. It's a good project, but it doesn't involve the council.
Yeah. So it says here, consider any actions. We're not considering any actions. Somebody suddenly is filled with excitement about a Woven initiative. Unity Bank is self-explanatory. We note that the arrangements are in hand and sorting. And then solar panels for the lamps. It's 9 o'clock and we've got about an item and a half to do. Can I move standing orders to continue, please? All those in favour? Thank you. We noting solar panels. That's all we have to do.
Can I express thanks to Gemma for all the work that she did
Yes.
with solar panels through? I think it's great that we've got it.
Thank you.
And
Can I ask a question
yes, you can.
on that?
Yes.
Our permission is, what is the word? Conditional, thank you. On a bat survey. I've never done a bat survey before.
And that survey's cost a lot of money. We
are expecting about £500 for the bat survey, which is sort of in hand with the budget anyway. But what I was going to ask everybody is that you've all got lots of environmental connections. If anybody knows someone who is a registered bat surveyor,
ask the Holme Library people. They have them in a few months.
Holme Library now,
Yeah,
right?
they've just had one done.
Finding a local one seems to have been a bit tricky.
I don't
recommendations.
I don't think they found a very local one. I think they ended up having to go a bit further afield than we expected. Final item. Final two items. I'm adding one. Can we order? I'm adding an illegal item. We've got. Is there any further action to be taken about? Well, yes, we're going to find out about the bat survey.
Okay, sorry.
Items for publicity. Any in particular that we've discussed tonight that we feel need to be emphasised? Gemma?
Could I ask the council's permission to run a advert for the food bank and the donation through our social media channels, please?
Do we approve that? Yeah. And
Well, sorry, Shane, can I just, just with some caution, because I think, as they said, it's not the only food bank.
No, I don't agree.
Yeah, but it's the only one asking for money.
No, the publicity.
Yes, that's to raise money. The publicity is to raise the money.
For food banks.
For both of them, we should mention both of them, shouldn't we?
Yeah, mention them.
And the welcome centre in town.
Yeah.
Oh, now, okay, well, stop, we're not doing all the food banks in the district, that's ridiculous. And the final point, is, since we passed it earlier, are there things that have been on this agenda that need particular green or environmental or biodiverse attention? Because we all feel that this should be the final item, it should be added along with publicity to every, I think we feel it should be to every committee agenda. So is there anything green or biodiverse that we need to? No? Okay, thank you. You've been very, very disciplined and we've got through. Thank you. And Merry Christmas.